All right, so we're not live on the radio yet, but we are live on Facebook.
Hello,
Facebook world.
Hello, the world.
I know.
Yeah.
Then I always dance to the background music that nobody else can hear. So now on Facebook, I'm just dancing all by myself with no music. Good morning, everybody. And I'm talking into the microphone that's not actually on yet. Good morning.
Do we need to wear headphones?
No.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 425 Show, your place to be for all things real estate and lifestyle related here on the East Side. I'm your host, Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate. Each week we focus on something that makes the East Side such an amazing place to live. And we've got great guests here that I'm excited to introduce you to today. But before I do, I just wanted to give you your weekly real estate update. It's fascinating. You know, I've been selling real estate on the East Side for the last 23 years. But I also teach classes for agents. And I did a little tour last week. I taught on Whidbey Island and up in Anacortes. And one of the most interesting things about teaching those classes was interacting with those agents, because what I found is their markets are so different, right? Not only is the style of house different, but the reasons people buy and sell are different, how they market them, like it's just all different, right? The pricing strategies, the marketing, all of that. And really what that drove home is the importance of working with a local agent who specializes in your market. It's really critical. You know, technically I'm licensed in the state of Washington. I can legally sell a house anywhere in the state of Washington. It's not necessarily in my client's best interest, right? For me to be going all over the place just because I can technically help you sell a house. It's really important that you buy or sell with a local agent. So if you're looking at doing something on the East Side or really anywhere, because I have a phenomenal network of agents, I invite you to reach out. You can always find me, Nicole at NicoleMangina.com, and I would either be happy to help you or we'll make sure you get connected to the very best agent for the area that you live in. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce our guest today. We've got Ryan James with Ryan. Many things that I love about this area is we have a strong arts community, both in terms of volume, but there's so many different types out there, and we're going to talk about all that today. So let's talk about your gallery that you've got in Kirkland, Ryan, and then we'll talk about the Bellevue Art Museum and how it all fits together. So you've got your gallery in Kirkland.
Yeah, we've been there now 7 years.
Okay, wow.
And yeah,
that went by fast.
It goes very fast.
Yes.
And we focus modern, abstract, and conceptual artists.
Okay.
And our next show is actually coming up in May. It's a dual show with Yara Molman, a Seattle artist, and Stephen Edwards, an Edmonds artist.
Great. Are most of your artists local to the area?
Yeah, primarily. This year actually was the first year we're breaking away from that model. And we have an artist from Miami coming in October, Gianna Di Bartolomeo, and she focuses on embroidered sequins.
Oh,
so
fascinating.
Very fun. Very excited to get her stuff in. So we'll have that in October through the end of November.
Awesome. That is one of the things that fascinates me about art is just the different mediums that people use, right? And some of them, like, it didn't occur to me to make art out of sequins, although I bet it's beautiful.
Yes.
Right?
And I feel like, too, because she grew up in Miami, and when we first saw it just very has that Miami feel. It's very colorful, it's exciting, and then with the sequins, it just adds that little bit of pop. So it's going to be really fun, I think, especially, too. So we plotted it to do it in fall, because, you know, we get a little more gray in Seattle, so we thought that would be really exciting to have some Miami flavor come in.
Yes, that's awesome. I love art galleries and going to check out art and stuff. It's actually something we've been doing with our kids since they were little. Whenever we travel, one of the things we do is we go through art galleries with the kids.
And we highly encourage that. That's actually my favorite time when the
That's
kids
good, because not all galleries think it's funny.
No, and they should though, because what's really fascinating, especially when we're dealing with more contemporary art, it's the kids who are not afraid to answer.
Right.
So they'll talk about the piece with
Yes.
me, and then the parents will get more comfortable, like, because then they're interacting with the child, and then we actually have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of times when adults come in, there's this hesitation, and the first thing they say when they come in the door, I don't know anything about art.
I know, because by the time you're an adult, you feel like there's a right and a wrong
Right,
answer.
exactly.
Right? And as a
and there
kid, you
isn't.
don't know. It's just your answer is your answer.
Yeah, we did this really wonderful show in 2014 with Bellevue Boys and Girls Club and the Kirkland Boys and Girls Club, where we called it The Truth of Art, A Child's Perspective.
Oh, fascinating.
And we had 6 abstract artists from
Okay.
Washington, and then the kids were interviewed about their interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And then they created a piece based on that piece.
Right.
So we displayed them next to each other. And so it was really wonderful just to see how it very much translates and how they're more open.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that is one of my favorite parts about modern art, is it's more open for interpretation,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yes.
if you've got the traditional fruit bowl, it's great, but there's only so many things
Right.
you can draw from that. Maybe the time of day, the way, And so when you get into more subjective things, then people can really kind of open up to different things.
Exactly.
And I just think that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Right?
and there is no wrong answer, because
Yeah.
the viewer completes the piece. The artist
Oh, I love
projects
that.
it, puts it out there,
But
but
the viewer
it's
completes
you who comes to the full circle, because it's really what it means to you and how you interpret it.
Right. That makes sense.
And a lot of times, I mean, the artists even during the shows won't really tell you everything about the piece because they don't want to close off that answer.
I can appreciate
Yeah,
that.
so we don't do a lot of artist talks at the gallery just because we enjoy more of the cultivating a conversation with the viewer and the artist during the event. So definitely come to our receptions because the artists are in attendance.
Oh, fun. All right. We will be there for sure. Yay. All kinds of fun stuff. And Ben, you are the curator for the Bellevue Arts.
Yes, I'm the curator and executive director at the Bellevue Arts Museum.
Wow. That sounds like a
It's
lot
big
of fun
job.
work.
Yes, it's a huge amount of fun. The museum is a really an extraordinary place. I've been with the museum for about a year and a half now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's as you all may know, it's the only exhibiting large-scale exhibiting institution on the east side.
Right.
It grew out of the Bellevue Arts Fair, and the Bellevue Arts Fair is still something that the museum runs,
Right.
Which is kind of unusual. There are really very few museums across the country that run an art fair, manage an art fair of the size of the Bellevue Arts
It's
Fair.
enormous. I'm
Yeah.
always amazed when we go to that fair.
It's an extraordinary project, and obviously it's been going since the late 40s,
Right.
and the museum grew out of that.
Right.
So again, I think quite unusually for an art museum, it's a museum that's actually grown out of this community.
That's fun.
It's not been imposed by some kind of someone else. It's actually the people of this area decided they wanted an art museum, and now I have the privilege of running it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, and what are some of the exhibits that you have right now? How often? So, 2 questions at once.
Yeah.
Sorry. How often do you cycle through your
That is
exhibits?
Excellent question. We do about 8 to 10 exhibitions each year.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah. The museum, we have about 30,000 square feet of gallery space, which means we tend to do 4 exhibitions at any
Okay.
one time. I like my kind of exhibiting style is that we have a lot of variety, so that if you don't like one exhibition, you're going to like another one.
Perfect.
And I also think it's important that when people go into an art museum, they are exposed to maybe things that they haven't seen before, that they have to think about and kind of engage with. But also at the same time, they may have things that perhaps they're more familiar with that makes them feel more comfortable. And I think it's a varied experience is what we're after. So we are actually in a stage right now where we're changing over all of our shows.
Okay.
By early May, we'll have a completely new set of exhibitions.
Wonderful.
The museum is actually really unusual for this region, and I think in general we have no collection. So when you
Okay.
think of an art museum, you think of it's like the Louvre or something. There's the Mona
Right,
Lisa.
the things that are there
It's
all
there
the time.
all the time,
Right.
which is nice in some ways. But we don't do that. So we have no collection. And even if you are a regular visitor to the museum, we can pretty much guarantee that every time you come in, you will see something new.
Wonderful.
So we cycle through exhibitions every year, and it's always something new and it's always something different. And we hope it's something that's exciting and engaging for our audiences. So coming up, well, currently we were running our Glass Biennial, Glasstastic. That's been running since November last year. That's only got another month or so to run. Closes midway through April.
Okay.
Not 2 weeks actually. Gosh, yes, time.
I know.
Time
it's
is
April
moving forward.
2nd. Did either of you get suckered into any April Fools yesterday?
There were so many art ones online.
Yes.
Were there?
Yeah, the Metropolitan Museum was saying that Marie Kondo was going to come in.
Oh.
And remove
declutter.
anything that didn't spark joy with the population of New York would be thrown out. I thought that was amusing. We didn't do one, or did we?
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have that show. We have a great exhibition by a Seattle artist, Clyde Peterson. Again, those both close on the 15th of April.
Okay.
And then we have a slate of new shows. We have an exhibition that is a very what's the word? Advocational project about the ecological about the fate of salmon in this region by an artist called Joseph Rossano.
And they've turned that into art.
We'll have about 300 full-size glass salmon hanging from the ceiling of the gallery.
Oh,
it's
my
going to be
goodness.
very, very spectacular.
I bet.
The piece is called School,
Okay.
and is about really getting people to think about ecological issues in this region. So that's exciting.
Yes.
We're working with an artist called Oscar Turazon, who is another regional artist. He's the lead artist for the new waterfront public art exhibition in Seattle.
Okay.
So we're exhibiting some of his past work. We're working with an artist called Simon Hanselman, who is a graphic novelist, a comic book artist.
Really?
Again, living and working in this region. Just an extraordinary writer and illustrator. So he's publishing a new book in July, and we're showing all of the pages, all 190 or so pages of his new book, and he's produced a number of vignettes using his characters. And then we're working with the work of a jeweler, again from the region, called Ron Ho, who sadly passed away in 2016. But we're working with his estate and showing the kind of breadth of his. He was a very, very important educator in the region, and an important collector. So we're kind of trying to do a show that sort of demonstrates an artist as a kind of a building. Again, I'm not sure that so many people are aware. The Bellevue Arts Museum itself is a very important piece of architecture. It's a signature piece by one of the Northwest's most important architects, Stephen Hall, born in Bremerton. Now lives and works in upstate New York, but again, an architect from this region. So in some ways, I always say, the building itself is worth visiting, and it's worth the price of admission alone.
It is. It's a beautiful building, and I don't know that a lot of people realize you can actually have events there.
Absolutely.
You can rent it out.
Yep.
I've done several events there. I remember the price being very reasonable, but it's beautiful.
It is a gorgeous building, absolutely gorgeous.
And one of the biggest things anytime you're doing an event is, how do you make it special? What do you do for decorations, right? You need your whole decoration committee, and it's this. You don't need that at the Bellevue Arts Fair.
It's all
or
right
at
there.
the museum. If you do it, it's a gorgeous space. You can accommodate a great number of people, and to have all of that around is just. It was every time we've done it there, and you guys have always been great to work with there.
Oh, good, thank you. Oh, that's good to hear. And I think the other thing I often like to say, obviously, we do charge admission for the second and third floor of the museum, but the first floor of the museum is always free.
Oh, wonderful.
So, like I think just one other museum in this region, we have a completely free area, and we have great exhibitions and artworks, again drawn primarily from artists working in this region, which you can walk in off the street anytime. We're right in the center of downtown Bellevue, which is terrifically exciting for me because it's such a vibrant and kind of amazing place to be for a museum.
It is. I love
and
that.
again, I just love to see people, just walking off the street. Maybe they got 5 minutes to spare before a meeting or something, and just coming and experiencing some of the things that we have on show.
That's great. Yeah. Wonderful. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the event that you have coming up as well.
Yes.
Because like all good things, fundraising is part of supporting the arts. And you guys do it in style. And I love it.
We do, and we're very excited this year. So we have an annual fundraising gala called Artful Evening. Again, it's been running for very many years. I think it's one of the longest running fundraisers in the region. We are so delighted this year that Ryan is the chair of our fundraising committee for that.
Good work, Ryan.
For that event.
Very, very honored to be selected because, as you know, Nicole, I'm on a lot of these committees.
You are more committed to the East Side than anybody else I know.
This was the first time I was asked to chair it.
Yes.
So it's been really exciting working with the team, and the staff at the Bellevue Arts Museum has been absolutely amazing. We have a new development director, Cole Eckerman, who just started with the museum. Perfect timing as the gala is coming up.
Nice.
And then Ben and I are the ones who are selecting the artwork that'll be in the live auction.
Oh, and you sent me some of the links for the pieces that they're exquisite.
We have some very, very special things.
Yes.
We've tried to limit the number of objects, so we have roughly kind of half experiences and half objects, and a good proportion of those objects are drawn from either current exhibitions at the museum or artists that we have upcoming.
That's right.
So we have a beautiful painting by an artist called Nicole Gordon, who we're going to be exhibiting in February 2020. A beautiful preparatory drawing by a painter called Robert Williams, and we'll be showing Robert's work in October this year.
Okay.
So again, just trying to kind of link the auction project to what we have coming up in terms of exhibition has been very exciting, and of course that's the live auction part of the evening. But the silent auction, those are all works that have been very kindly donated to us by artists who are in the art fair.
Yes.
So there's a direct connection there between the amazing Bellevue Art Fair that we produce each year and the auction project itself.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. And my husband Gary and I went to the auction last year, and it was so fun. You get dressed up, you go to the Bellevue Art Museum, feel a little cultured. But it was wonderful to see in the silent auction beautiful pieces there, for sure. Some really fun things. And then when we went a couple weeks later to the actual art fair to see, I remember that artist from the auction and all of that. So you have some amazing pieces there, and we were talking about it before the show. One of the comments I made to my husband last year, I just remember thinking it has to be so fascinating to put this whole thing together, especially as you're thinking about live auction, because everybody kind of has their different thing that they're into with art, right? Some people like glass, some people like the 2D, and to figure out how do you select your live auction items to appeal to the right group of people based on who might be there from a bidding standpoint. So, and you guys do remarkably well. I'm always fascinated to see, what things go for and stuff like that.
It's a fun job, and
yeah.
in the business in the area of activity that I'm in, obviously I've spent a lot of time, or reasonably large amount of time, going to live auctions.
I'm sure.
And it's really a spectator thing. You go to Sotheby's or Christie's or something in New York or London. And you sit at the back of the room.
Have you been to those auctions?
Oh yeah,
I would love to be a fly on the wall for those
you
things.
can. I mean, if you can literally walk into those.
Really?
Providing it's not one of the major ones, which tend to be ticketed.
Sure.
But it's so much fun. So much fun. You have to keep your hands down,
I
obviously.
bet.
But and again, we wanted to try and get some of that kind of fun atmosphere at the art museum's auction, because it's a fun thing to watch. Obviously, we want people to have their hands in the air because we want people to be bidding.
Right.
We want people to be donating. Yeah. So so our auction this year is on the 29th of June. It's a month before the art fair, which is the last weekend in July. And it's a great occasion. I mean, as I said, I've only been working at the museum relatively for only a year and a half or so. Last year's Artful Evening was the first one that I experienced, and I had a huge amount of fun, even though, of course, as director, it's kind of a stressful evening. But
you did magnificently.
When you get into it,
we were there,
it's fun
and you
for
were
me too.
talking about the different art pieces, and you were.
Well, we try.
Awesome.
But it's been a lot of fun as well, working with someone as expert as Ryan.
Yes.
This year as well, as you said, kind of curating and arranging what are the pieces that we're going to have
Yes.
in the live piece.
Well, and I loved it. We had so much fun at that event because when we were in the art museum for the silent auction part, you did periodic little talks throughout the museum
did.
about different pieces, and
Yes.
I loved that. And
Thank
you
you.
made it feel so natural. I think sometimes people are nervous. Art is kind of like wine, right? Like I remember the first time my husband and I went wine tasting in Walla Walla. I'm like, I'm not cool enough to be here, right? Because we're next to people and they had way more wine knowledge than we did, right? And I'm like, I can drink it. I can't really tell you all this other stuff, though. And I think art can be intimidating as well. And I think that auction and that event is a really fun place because you get to see all kinds of different things. You can learn a little bit about the pieces and the artists, which the stories always fascinate me. And you just made it a really fun event where I think anybody could feel comfortable going and enjoy the experience
Oh yeah, even
of
if
doing
this-
something they might not normally do.
Yeah, and even if the auction, the gala, is your first time actually even interacting with the museum, it's a
Right.
really wonderful first time to do it because it is a social event.
I mean, what Ryan said earlier was exactly correct. There are no wrong answers.
Right.
And, art is very much, a good artist will leave works open. They don't close that loop.
Right.
It's one of the ways, actually, that you can judge a good work of art. Does it raise questions in me?
Sure.
Or is it just a closed argument? Now, a closed work is something that's not that interesting to me. And I love your analogy with wine. I'm a complete wine dolt. I don't know. I mean, I guess red and there's white, I suppose.
Yeah. Headache, no headache.
Yeah, I know. But I know it tastes good.
Right.
And as I said, if a wine it makes me feel curious about drinking more of it, then it's a good wine.
Right. And
And
yes,
that's same with a painting or piece of sculpture.
absolutely. And if you want to share the story behind it, all the better. I love a good story.
Yeah.
All right.
And and so in some ways that way, I empathize with folks who might come into the museum and feel a little bit intimidated. But you know what? It's not intimidating.
It's not. No.
It's prompting you to ask questions about itself and about yourself, and it's also about enjoyment.
Right.
The material that we have at the museum, you should enjoy looking at it. I always remember that. Any visitor to an art museum are coming in their leisure time. And we need to provide a leisure activity that is rewarding as going to the store, or going to the movies, or eating a delightful meal, or drinking a bottle or two of lovely wine.
Right. See, it's coming full circle.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, and I would highly encourage, too, as you come in, the Bellevue Art Museum has an amazing group of docents.
Yes.
That
Yes,
are
they are
trained,
wonderful.
they're educated on the exhibitions that are happening, they're volunteers, so they're very passionate.
Really? Oh, that's so nice.
But go in, and when they approach you or you approach them, actually have the conversation, because you will learn a lot about that exhibition just from their passion around it, and they will
Right.
guide you to some of their favorite pieces and just kind of how to put it all together. So it's really rewarding to actually take some time as you're going through it to interact with the docents.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's important with any museum experience that we provide touch points throughout the museum where people can, talk to someone, and
Sure.
start to engage with work. Because I'm really a strong advocate for visiting museums not to be a passive experience.
Sure.
It should be an active and engaging experience, and that's really what we want to try and do at the museum.
Right. And I love that. I love hearing people's stories, right? I think that's part of why I love what I do, right?
Yeah.
Is I get to know people and I hear their stories, and it's all about, helping them complete that. So I do love hearing the story of the artist or kind of what sparked their interest
Absolutely.
in creating a piece.
I mean, an artwork is the beginning of a conversation.
Right.
When
beautifully said.
so we have these, an exhibition opens, but that's actually the beginning of the conversation that we want to have with our audience.
Yes.
And obviously, that takes time, it takes energy, but I mean that's our job is to prompt those conversations.
Wonderful.
And to me, art is all about telling stories. There may not be a direct narrative within a work, though. Again, we've got I said, we have Simon Hanselman's work coming up, which is all about narratives, all about an actual story.
Right.
But any work, even something that maybe on the face of it be kind of abstruse and abstract and conceptual, there is a story within that,
Right.
and it's drawing that story out of the artwork, and it's drawing that story out of you is what's important.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Thank you. Yes.
Perfect.
That's our mission at the museum, and
Mission accomplished.
Thank you. And obviously the fundraiser, that's all about making that mission more effective.
Right, because that is a big source of the funds that you have to run the museum with.
Every
right?
museum runs these kind of events, and we're very lucky at the Bellevue Arts Museum to have the art fair, which is also a source of revenue for us. But the gala as well is incredibly important, and it's an opportunity really for the community to demonstrate its support for its museum.
Right.
And as I said, the museum came out of this community. It's not the creature of a single collector, or a single collection, or people from hundreds of years ago. It's from people relatively recently decided that this would be a thing that should happen for Bellevue.
That's great.
And the Artful Evening is an opportunity to really kind of demonstrate that.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel.
perfect. And then it's fun that it rolls into the arts fair, because I say this all the time, but I am always amazed. I mean, it is an arts fair.
Oh goodness,
I mean,
it's
there's
huge. Yes.
some crafts there, but
Yeah.
there's some
Oh, yeah.
high-level art that
Oh,
you're
goodness,
just
yeah.
strolling through the garage at Bellevue Square, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, that's kind of a big deal.
No, we have. Obviously, it's a very hard event to count how many people come through, but
Sure.
we estimate that it's something like 250 to 300,000
I
people
believe
come
it.
through over those 3 days. It's an extraordinary event. I really like the contrast. The new Seattle Art Fair over in Seattle, and the contrast between our art fair and Seattle's art fair. I think is very
I haven't
interesting.
made it to the Seattle one yet. Maybe this year I'll make it.
Yeah, maybe it's interesting. It's a very different kind of event,
I would
and I
imagine.
think the two complement each other very, very well. But I think the festival aspect of the Bellevue Art Fair is very exciting, and obviously one sees and meets people who've been coming to that fair for years and years
for
and years
sure.
and years.
Generations.
Generations, exactly. It's bedded into this community. It's so important.
Right.
And it's one of the many things that makes Bellevue and the 425 area such an exciting and rewarding place to live.
It's
I
wonderful.
think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Ryan, you've got, like you said, some really great exhibits coming up at your place as well, right?
Yeah, and over the 7 years, we have really, as a gallery, kind of honed in our exhibition and show model. So we actually only do 4 shows a year,
Okay.
which for me, marketing-wise and staff-wise, is
Right.
wonderful. But what's really great, too, is when you come into the gallery like this month and next month, when it's a non-show month, you get an actual wider range of the artists that we carry, because we represent 15 artists.
Okay.
So if I don't have a show taking over all of our walls,
Right.
my staff and I just, if we happen to be kind of stuck on an email or a project that's getting frustrating, we just rearrange some art, pull some stuff out of the back and just kind of get our minds off of it for a second.
That's
and just
wonderful.
enjoy it. And in our office, which is right up front, we're always moving works.
Sure.
Just to give it new, fresh feel.
That's great. That's wonderful. And like I said, you are one of the most involved people in the 425 that I know of. You are constantly helping people out and raising money. Anytime we just talked to you, we're involved with the Kirkland Chamber auction over the weekend, and you must have a lot of energy or not require a lot of sleep.
Little of both, but I strongly believe in community, and I think as we talked about earlier, the 425, as it is large, it is very much a small town feel.
For sure.
Yeah, so it's all about
So.
supporting your community through any different volunteer aspect that you can think of.
Wonderful. Awesome. Again, we've had Ryan and Ben on the show with us today talking all about art, the Bellevue Arts Fair, and the Ryan James Gallery in Kirkland. We will have links to everything on the website after the show, NicoleMangina.com/podcast. So if you feel like you want to spruce up your house, it's time for some art, spring cleaning, or if you just want to have a fun afternoon and go check out these different exhibits at the Bellevue Art Museum or at Ryan's Gallery, I certainly welcome you to do that. And the auction at the end of June.
June 29th.
June 29th.
Tickets available at the website.
All right.